Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Be Well, Be Keto. And today's guest is the awesome Craig Emmerich. Yep, the hubby of Maria. So Craig graduated in electrical engineering and has always had a systems approach to his work. He is also an international best-selling author, and he followed his wife Maria into the nutrition field and has since dedicated his time researching and looking at nutrition and biology from a systems perspective. Over the last 10 plus years, he has worked with hundreds of clients alongside Maria to help them heal their bodies and lose weight, leveraging their biology and a ketogenic lifestyle to make it easy. And one thing we talk about that's super cool today is your environment. So let's go say hi to Craig.
Welcome to the Be Well, Be Keto podcast, where we showcase ordinary people who have achieved extraordinary results. Your host is the high energy girl, health coach, and personal trainer, Tracy Gluheit.
Guess what, everyone? My book is out. It is a revised and updated edition of a book I wrote 5 years ago called No Frickin' Way, 21 Days to Ditch the Diet and Lose Weight the Keto Way by Loving Yourself to Health. When I first wrote the original book, I was not a believer in the low-carb movement, but after all the years of research I've done, I am sold out for life. In this book, you will learn about all the lies you have been fed, how to engage in loving self-care, how to eat nourishing foods that provide massive energy, why the ketogenic diet is not a fad, how to heal your body through fasting, why you should move your body to get stronger, and how to create an empowering mindset. Start reading now and finally achieve the high energy and positive body image you deserve. Check it out on Kindle, on Amazon. And if you like it, please leave us a review because this will help more people find it. I really want to inspire people to not deprive themselves, but to nourish themselves with loving self-care and amazingly healthy food so that they can age stronger. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed writing it. Have you joined the Facebook group yet? I have a new Facebook group called High Energy Girls, and that is pretty much where I'm hanging out these days, and I would love to have you a part of the group. So head on over to High Energy Girls on Facebook. Hey, Craig, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
So I've been following you for quite some time. My very first book that I read on keto when I was first introduced to the concept was one on Kindle that your wife wrote. So that was probably about 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
So, what was it called? Keto Adapted. And so for the listeners that don't yet know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Our story goes back quite a ways, actually. Maria started our family on this journey, and it was to help herself. She struggled all through high school with not only her weight, but also with PCOS and acid reflux and IBS type issues. And she tried everything that, conventional wisdom told her to do, which is eat lots of healthy whole grains and low fat and, exercise more. And she was doing all of those things and nothing was improving. She went on to college for health and human performance, and got a lot of the same nutrition message, the food pyramid basically. And she was doing that and it wasn't working. And so she even got to the point where she would run marathons and not lose weight, not see any improvement in her health. So she said there's got to be a better way. And immediately after school started just researching everything she could get her hands on of studies and books talking about different lifestyles and learning about this low carb kind of approach, ketogenic approach, and incorporating it in her own life, seeing huge improvements in reversing her PCOS, having acid reflux and IBS go away. She had lost the extra weight, even though she was stopping doing marathons, doing less activity like that. So it was kind of an eye-opening experience for her. And in the process, everybody wanted to know what she was doing. And so she started writing a book. Actually, originally, our first book over 15 years ago was inspired to help fund our adoption. And so that book, long gone these days, it's not even in print anymore, but she wrote this book, just kind of put her thoughts together of what she was doing and what worked. And we started a blog, and 15 plus years of helping clients find the same kind of results. That's where we end up today. So it was really her own health journey that started this process for us. And it took me a little bit longer. I was brewed my own beer, and got a German background and all of that. So it was a little harder for me to come around to the whole idea. But during the week, she would just make us both food, and I would eat it. And then on the weekends, we'd go out to restaurants. I'd probably have other things, that I still wasn't willing to give up. But after a couple of years, just seeing her drastic improvements and how much energy she had and everything, I started to come on board and just started not liking the way I felt on the weekends. And so I completely converted over about, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years ago. And our whole family's been this way ever since. I've saw big improvements in just digestion and how I feel. The biggest things for me have been like mental clarity and the amount of focus I'm able to put into things. And I had about 40 pounds of extra weight that went away. And so lots of positive results. And a third component of this is we finally brought our sons home about 8 years ago. And they came home barely registering on the height and weight charts. They were like 2% on the height and weight charts. And, in the orphanage in Ethiopia, they didn't get very good nutrition, and that was, stunting them. And so we just started feeding them what we ate. And, Kai would have bone broth and supplement that with Maria's egg pudding. That's where she originated that recipe. We couldn't get him to eat eggs. So she made a pudding out of hard-boiled eggs, and he loved that. But we make meat, beef, and just puree it until it's fine enough where he could eat it. And, they went in 1 year from, 2% on the charts to 50%. And then by the second year, they were like 75% on the height and weight charts, and have been there ever since. So they're thriving, we're thriving, and that's kind of the high level of our story.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because there's a couple things that, like, any kid coming from Ethiopia could probably gain weight, but that most of them would be doing it the wrong way, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you can gain weight by eating, McDonald's and eating crap food, but you're not going to gain healthy weight that way. So you guys, made them stronger, leaner, healthier, instead of just, heavier.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much, when kids are young, how much growth is just hormone driven. And so, any calories can help move it in the direction you want to go. But the right kind of, composition is a completely different thing, and our kids, Micah is super smart. He's 9 years old, and he's doing algebra and geometry and all this stuff in math. And Kai, I believe he has a little bit of dyslexia, but he has picked up. He's right on grade with reading and all these things, and he works really hard at it. And so they're both very sharp and very. I know for a fact that one of my boys would be diagnosed as being ADHD or hyperactive, but he totally manages it with this lifestyle. And I know that if he was high on sugar and grains and things, that he would be in much, much worse shape when it comes to his focus.
Yeah. And another thing I heard about for like ADHD and stuff with kids is the light that is in, like fluorescent lighting is really harsh on them. And like the new light bulbs, is it
Yeah.
LED?
Yeah.
Like, so I've seen, I don't know if you've seen this. Now, do they go to school or are you homeschooling?
We homeschool.
That's what I thought. Like, I don't know if you have any of that, but what I've heard from just my training and studies is that when they're exposed to that type of light, to put like a ball cap on them so it doesn't disturb something in their brain that has to do with the flickering of the really fast flickering of the light. Have you heard about that?
I haven't heard of that one. I have heard of, in general, some issues with those kind of lights. And, in our book Keto, we talk a lot about the environments we're in addition to, food as an input. We have all these inputs to our body, and if they get off from what we've evolved to be used to, you can have problems. And that includes, diet, that includes sleep, quality sleep, which we emphasize a lot, light and circadian rhythms, and how our body is just wants to have this natural cycle of light, and we've completely disrupted that these days. And that's why, especially for quality sleep, we talk a lot about blue blocking glasses in the evenings to block out the blue light, because our eye has a receptor for blue, and mostly blue, but also some green light spectrum. And what it does is it communicates with the SCN in the brain to either generate melatonin or stop generating melatonin. Melatonin is our body's natural I'm sleepy hormone. And what happens is when there's blue light present, it doesn't create melatonin. When you don't have any blue light coming into the eye, the body starts creating melatonin or making you drowsy. And what do we have these days? We have artificial lighting in our homes, whether it's fluorescent or LED or just incandescent bulbs. So you're getting this light all day long into the evening, and then you're in front of a TV or a phone or an iPad or a computer, and you're bombarded with blue light into your eye from those devices. And so you never allow the body to naturally generate a cycle of melatonin. So wearing these blue light blocking glasses in the evening can be very helpful for sleep for adults or kids.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I've had a pair of those, blue blockers for a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you mentioned that sleep's so important, because I just wrote a book and it just launched like a week ago. And I quoted Maria and I asked her about this, but the quote is, "Many people gain weight in the summer. One main reason is because they skimp on sleep. It is easy to get 8 to 10 hours of sleep when it gets dark out at 4:30 in January, but who wants to go to bed when it is light out? Not me."
Yeah, it's you get those later evenings and earlier mornings in the summer because it's nice out and you want to get out and do activities, but also just the light is the sun comes up and you start to wake up. So things like we also talk about the bedroom and how things like blackout blinds can help. So they block out the light, and so you get enough quality sleep. Sleep is such a hugely important thing for healing and weight loss and just general health. We talk to so many clients that say, yeah, I get good sleep. And then you dig into it and say, okay, what's that mean to you? And well, I get 5-6 hours a night, and that's just not enough. Everybody's so busy these days that these shorter and shorter sleep cycles have become normal, and it leads to dysfunction in the body and problems. So and especially with weight loss, if you don't get enough quality sleep, your hunger is increased the next day. I see it all. If I lose a couple hours of sleep one night, the next day I am ravenous. I want to eat a lot more than I would if I got quality sleep. So it's very important for weight loss.
Yeah. And gosh, it's like so sad when people tell me that they can't sleep. I have a client right now that's having such a difficult time, and I can't figure out what is up with her other than just stress.
Yeah.
That's what for a lot of people, it's just the fact that their mind can't shut off.
Yeah. And they're, the blue light blocking glasses might help a little bit just to get that melatonin going. and try to shut the mind off a bit. But yeah, that can be a problem for some people. And another very common one, especially when people with this lifestyle, when they go keto, they see kind of a dumping of estrogen because we're in such an estrogenic environment that when you go keto, the body starts detoxing bad estrogens, which raises your estrogen levels and gets it out of balance with progesterone. And so it's really kind of a low progesterone state. And what happens is people will fall asleep okay, but then wake up at like 2 a.m., bing, they're wide awake and they can't fall back to sleep. That's a classic sign of low progesterone. And so they can add some supplements like evening primrose oil and progesterone cream before bed to help balance out those levels while the body's detoxing and getting rid of those bad estrogens. So that's another way you can kind of hack sleep a little bit.
So how long for 2 questions with that. How long does it take to detox the bad estrogens? And second question, what brand of progesterone cream do you recommend?
Well, the second one, Emerita, it's just yam extract, so it's a natural progesterone. That's one we usually recommend. But as far as the time, it really depends on a lot of factors. Our bodies store toxins in our fat cells. And so as you're losing body fat, losing weight, you're going to release those toxins into your system and go through the detoxification pathways. And so, the process of losing weight can dump a lot of these things into the system. So that's a big component of it. If you've got a lot of weight to lose, it could happen for quite a while until you lose all that weight. Another thing is the environment. We are living in an estrogenic environment, like huge amount of estrogenic mimicking compounds that are in our environment that can really mess up our levels. And that includes food like soy and flax, very high in estrogenic compounds. And it includes things like plastics. I just was looking at a study that showed water sitting in a plastic water bottle will add like 1 nanogram of estrogenic compounds per hour that it's sitting there. So if you get a bottled water that's been sitting in a factory or somewhere for a couple of months, you're going to have a lot of estrogenic compounds in there. And then if you heat anything in plastic, that's a whole nother, it's like 50 times more estrogens that get into the water or what it's touching. And that's a huge component. What we put on our skin, makeups, there's so many compounds in traditional makeups that raise estrogen levels. Scented candles, dryer sheets, these all have these estrogen mimicking compounds, and we're being flooded with it in our environment these days. So you really got to kind of change your environment and get rid of those toxic compounds, and then your body will naturally reset itself to the levels it wants to be at.
And it's interesting that you said that, because I listened to a really good podcast with Wendy Myers. She's awesome. And she was interviewing somebody who is really into the whole detox of estrogens. And they said something that, like right now, BPA free is like a big buzzword, right? Well, What they did was they replaced the BPA with BPS, which is like 10 times more toxic. And but people don't know about it. So yeah, it's BPA free, but still, it's not good to be in plastic. And then the lining of the cans, and we're just surrounded by that.
I think that was probably Dr. Anthony J. He's really big into estrogenic environments. He's got a book out about it, and it's anything in plastic is just not a good idea. When I see these people that use these plastic liners in their slow cooker just so they don't have to scrub a little bit when they're done, I just cringe, because heat, especially with plastics, is really going to dump a lot of these compounds into the food that it's touching.
Oh my gosh, I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, it's like a plastic liner you stick into the slow cooker so that when you're done, you just pull that out and you don't have to clean the slow cooker.
Oh my God, that's like a whole new kind of lazy.
Yeah, it's not good.
Oh my goodness, as if anything sticks in your slow cooker, really, you know?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Yeah, no, I am so against the whole plastic movement. I remember throwing away all of my Tupperware and switching over to the glassware, and that's really, really important. And so the progesterone cream,
Yeah.
when people are detoxing and stuff, should they get tested for their hormone levels, or should they pretty much know that when they're doing the detox process that they're probably low on progesterone?
Yeah, that, in general, we tend to just stick with symptoms when it comes to these type of things. Couple reasons. I mean, first of all, everybody is a little different. Some people will be symptomatic with, thyroid levels of a certain level where another person has no symptoms and they feel great. So, one person to another, the levels might be different for their body. But, in general as well, when it comes to lab tests, all lab ranges of quote normal are all, number one, just based on the average of what those labs see. And so if you actually look into this, it's kind of crazy. They just take the average of what the labs see, and that's the normal range. Well, who gets blood tests done? Typically, it's people who are sick. Mm-hmm. So your normal range is for this kind of skewed population of people. But then secondly, it's generally for people on the standard American diet. So if you're eating the standard American diet, those ranges might be where you want to be. But if you're eating keto or some other way, what are the normal ranges? I don't think we really know. And thyroid hormones are a great example. T3 typically goes lower when you're keto. But number one, a slower thyroid has been shown, a slightly slower thyroid has been shown to be good for longevity. So that's kind of a good thing. And Dr. Finney has a great article on this showing how in reality, when you're keto, your cells are more sensitive to T3, so you need less. So, that's why, as far as labs go, you have to be a little more critical and take a look at things. And we tend to look more at symptoms and go by those. So, for example, like where I was saying, if you wake up at 2 a.m. and you can't fall back asleep, that's a good sign you have low progesterone, and you need to treat that to help with the symptoms. So that's kind of the way we do it is, if you're having these, X, Y, Z symptoms, it's probably this. We'll take a look at it, maybe supplement and see if we can even things out.
Yeah, that's good. And I also heard something about if you're postmenopausal several years to not add in the sex hormones because I can't remember why, but there was a reason that it wasn't going to be as beneficial, I think. I think it just wasn't going to be as beneficial as if you caught it early on.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely factors there. We're not a big fan of bioidentical hormone replacement and those kind of things. We try to treat, number one with food. I mean, ketogenic diet, we've had so many women that are, menopausal or postmenopausal that see a huge reduction in symptoms and balancing of their hormones when they're keto. So diet alone can go a long ways to helping. Mm-hmm. And then there's some, natural supplements that you can help balance things out with. That's the route we typically go.
Yeah, that's really good. I took that evening primrose oil based on the Keto Adapted book when I first got started. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I was a big fan of that book, and it was really hard because, I came from traditional fitness training that, you had to have your carbs and you had to eat every 3 hours, the 6 small meals a day. So
yeah, that's, there's so much of, quote unquote traditional wisdom that is just so wrong that, we just got to peel back the layers and look at things critically and see what works for you. And, another example is like the sun. We avoid the sun like the plague these days, but low vitamin D3 levels are correlated with so many diseases and issues. And the vitamin D you make in your skin is much better than any supplement form. And you also get sulfates and cholesterol sulfates that can only be made in the skin from the sun, and all these healthy things that improve your health. Getting some common sense sun exposure, getting 20, 30 minutes a day of sun to help boost those levels. Where today you get in the sun, and the second you're in the sun, a lot of people slather on SPF 60 and they never get any of that. So there's a lot of things like that where traditional wisdom is not exactly right.
Oh yeah, and then a lot of the sunscreens have so much toxins that you're more apt to get skin cancer from the toxins in the sunscreen than you are from the actual sun itself.
Yeah, the perfect example for me to say, this isn't working is if you look at the trend of sunscreen purchasing and use, it goes from the early 80s through the roof, like 1,000 times higher level of sunscreen purchasing and in use. So if it truly was that issue, wouldn't skin cancer be going down and down over that time frame? No, it continues to go up. And so, for me, it's like, okay, that's not working. I mean, you've gone up like 1,000 times in use, and yet the skin cancer rates keep going up. So my view on it is we need more stable fats in the skin. Skin has a lot of fat in it, and when you fill your body with fats that can be oxidized easily, like omega-6 vegetable and seed oils, your skin becomes composed of a lot of those that are easily oxidized. And when you hit the sun, you burn easier. You can, get that kind of damage much easier because you've got fats that are populating your body that are not very stable. And if you switch to, keto, you eliminate hopefully all those vegetable and seed oils, and you get more stable saturated fats and those type of fats that aren't going to be easily oxidized. So I think that's a big component as well.
Wow, I've never heard of that one. Okay, so that's new. I love learning new things from you guys.
Yeah, well, we see quite a bit with clients. They'll say, I just don't burn anymore. And, getting that kind of common sense 20, 30 minutes and then kind of maybe getting some shade and whatnot, people just, or if for some reason they're out in the sun longer, they just don't burn as much because I believe it's because of that reason.
Ah, that's a good one. So let me ask you this. I found a new product. It is called Bitchin' Sauce. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't.
Well, I think they originate in California. And so now our Costco has them, and it's amazing. Look it up online. It's made with almonds primarily because I tend to not do much dairy, and it's pretty darn good. And I just put it like maybe a little bit on eggs or like some meat or something. Yeah. But it has, so here's my thing. The reason I'm even asking is why I'm questioning this is because it has grapeseed oil in it.
Oh, yeah. So grapeseed oil is pretty high in omega polyunsaturated fats, the little bit not as stable fats. So, yeah, we typically look for maybe olive oil or, for liquid fats at room temp. Those omega-9 type oils, so olive oil, avocado oil, those are the ones we tend to look for. And that's why we like the Primal Kitchen.
Yeah, I love their
sauces. They're all made with avocado oils.
Yeah, I love their salad dressing and their chipotle mayo. Have you had that?
No. The Primal. Yeah. Those are great.
Yeah, that chipotle mayo is amazing. I mean, it tastes. What I do is instead of eating tuna, I'll make it like tuna, but I'll use sardines and use that Primal Kitchen mayo and make lettuce wraps. It is so good.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So, okay, so that dip, I mean, I'm wondering if just that little bit of grapeseed oil is harmful. Like if you're having a couple tablespoons of the dip and it's primarily almonds, what would you think about that, Craig?
Well, it depends on how much, right? I mean, if it's a sauce and that's the main oil that's used as the base of the sauce, it's going to be a fair amount that you're getting. If it's just one of the ingredients way down the line of ingredients, and so there's not much in there, it might be fine. I guess it would depend on that. Omega-6s are still essential fatty acids. You still need some omega-6, but it's balancing that against omega-3s. You always hear talking about balancing omega-6 to omega-3s.
Right, yeah.
Where the standard American diet, it's like 60-1. You get 60 times more omega-6s than you get omega-3s, because what do we got all over the food supply in the standard American diet? We've got soybean oil, we got, rapeseed oil or vegetable oil. So these are big problems, and you get this big imbalance. Well, when you're keto, you cut all those out, so you get a much better. You want more like a 1-to-1 balance of omega-6 to omega-3. So in small amounts, it's probably okay, but in general, like I said, I would look for more like an omega-9 as a base.
Okay, yeah, I do the same thing with the avocado and the extra virgin olive oil. Those are what's in the pantry mainly, so that's good to know. And so what does your guys' meal plan look like? Like, go back one. So the other question I had that I forgot to ask you was, when Maria was in college, were you guys dating back then?
Yes, I was.
Oh, good. That's so cute.
Yeah, we were dating then.
Oh, awesome. So you kind of saw everything happen, like the whole journey.
Yep. And so we were together through the whole thing. It's going to be to the a year and a half from now, it'll be 20 years together, so.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Yeah, we just celebrated. We got engaged May 19th of 1989, so that's 30 years.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, you don't see that very much these days, right?
Yeah.
So, where are you guys still living in Hawaii?
No, we actually got a condo there that we spend a couple months in the winter. We love Wisconsin summers, and we love the lakes and all the everything here, but winter gets to be a bit long, so we try to go there for a couple months to get away from it. And homeschooling the boys makes it easy. We just kind of take everything with us and keep it going there.
That's awesome. That is really cool. And so what does a day in your guys' eating look like? Do you guys do fasting? Tell me about that.
Intermittent fasting tends to come naturally for most people eating keto, just because they're not as hungry, they don't have the cravings they used to have. So a lot of times we have clients that will just say, I forgot to eat breakfast, which, in the standard American diet, you can imagine that you're ravenous in the morning and you got to eat something. But, with this lifestyle, you keep insulin level and glucose levels level, so you're not getting those bouts of hunger. And so a lot of people just naturally go to, 2 meals a day, where they'll, whether it's in the morning or afternoon, they'll have just 2 meals in maybe 6 to 8 hours of time, and that's an intermittent fasting. And there's added benefits of intermittent fasting, where your body can do other things like autophagy when it's not processing calories. So that, if you're healing from, autoimmune disorders or those type of things, that can be helpful as well.
Yeah, I think you feel so much better that way. Like, as soon as I eat lunch, I start yawning. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah. Well, it's that, spike when blood sugar is falling, you get hungry. It doesn't have to be low. It's just when it starts to fall. And so what happens when you eat a bunch of carbs, your blood sugar spikes too high, and the body kind of panics and says, too much blood sugar is going to kill me, so I got to drive this down quick. And insulin spikes, and your blood sugar starts to rapidly drop about an hour or so after you eat. Well, even though you ate a very large meal, an hour later you're hungry because your blood sugar's falling. And that is the kind of vicious cycle that's a high carb diet produces.
Mm-hmm. I also think, though, that when you eat, like right away, your body's energy goes to digestion. And so it's not available for all the other good things that we're experiencing during a fasting state.
Sure. There's some truth to that, but I would say in general, if you eat the right kind of foods after your meal, you should be fairly energized. You shouldn't have that, after Thanksgiving dinner kind of want to fall asleep and take a nap feeling. That's more of a, it depends on what you're doing and what you're eating, I think, somewhat. But in general, most of the time you won't see that when you eat this way.
So what do you typically eat in a day? Walk me through like yesterday, perhaps.
Yeah, most days I will start with some sort of eggs, whether it's eggs and bacon or eggs mixed with some cheese or some other stuff in it. But mostly eggs and bacon, typically to start the day. And then that's usually around like 9, 10 o'clock. And then I'll have around 3 or 4 o'clock, I'll have a second meal that can be a number of different things. Usually it's some sort of beef, like a couple burgers with some cheese on them, that kind of thing. It's predominantly what you'd probably call carnivore. I don't, with my Lyme disease that I've been dealing with the last couple of years, or I've had it for about 6 years, but I've been diagnosed about 1.5 years ago. I've found that being more carnivore will definitely keep my symptoms down. And actually, some of the first people to really get into doing carnivore full time did it because of Lyme disease. You go to keto and you see some improvement in symptoms. If you go all the way to carnivore, they get even better. So I can't remember the woman's name, but she's been about 20 years now been carnivore to help with their Lyme. But yeah, so I've been kind of leaning towards that. So I'll predominantly eat steak or burgers or some sort of beef as the second meal.
Oh, sounds so good. I mean, I always call myself a carnicado because I love I love my grass-fed ground beef with my own homemade taco seasoning and avocado.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
It's interesting that avocado is kind of one of those, either you love it or you hate it. I'm not a big fan myself. I know a lot of people like them, but I don't know, just not a fan.
Yeah, I grew up on it. I mean, totally eating avocado all the time. So let me ask you this. So do you remember getting bit by a tick?
No. We live in Wisconsin and our home is in the woods, and, ticks are just part of the territory. We didn't take them quite as seriously until I got this diagnosis as maybe we should have. If you go in the woods, you're going to get ticks. That's just kind of the way it works around here. And so I had ticks embedded on me over the years. I never got like a bullseye kind of thing, but I definitely had ticks over the years. I definitely now am much more careful when I go into the woods of, taking care to, tuck your pants into your socks. So as they climb up, they're on the outside of the clothing. As soon as you come back in, you check everything to make sure there's none on you, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was in Minnesota visiting a few weeks ago, and I woke up in the morning and found a tick embedded into my hip. And I had never had one before. Yeah,
you got to kind of watch it, and there's so much. I mean, we could spend an entire hour talking about Lyme disease, but there's a lot of things with Lyme that you get problems that can develop because of your depressed immune system and Lyme. There's one of the top Lyme doctors in the country, Dr. Klingart in Seattle. He's never had a patient with MS not also test positive for Lyme disease.
Whoa.
So he believes there's can be some connection there of Lyme depresses the immune system and allows these autoimmune disorders to start happening in the body where the body can normally, with a good immune system, can fight those things. So, there's lots of connections there that I think we're still not fully understanding.
Can a person get tested for Lyme's disease like right away? Or does it take time to show up?
Well, a couple things. Number one, your body, it has to be embedded, I believe, for at least 24 hours before you really start getting the Lyme transmission in general. I think it's pretty quick. The other thing you can do, which may be more effective, is if you do find a tick embedded, IGeneX is the kind of preferred Lyme test. They're much better than the standard Western blot test you'd get at the doctor. They have a tick test kit. So you actually, if the tick is embedded in you, you take it, you put it in the kit, and then they test the tick for Lyme. And then you see if the tick doesn't have Lyme, then you can't have it. But if the tick does have Lyme, then you might want to consider getting yourself tested.
Man, I saved the tick. And then the doctor, my company sent me to the doctor to get a tetanus shot and an antibiotic. The doctor gave me an antibiotic as well. And she said, "Oh, you could just throw it away."
Yeah, there's so much misunderstanding in standard medicine about Lyme, and that's why if you have it, you really got to find a Lyme literate doctor. Lyme is a different animal if you catch it early versus if it becomes chronic. If you catch it in the first, few weeks and treat with a pretty standard antibiotic protocol, it's typically pretty easy to treat. It's just when it becomes, like me, where it was 5-6 years of not being treated, in part because I was negative on the Western blot Lyme test, which if you talk to a Lyme literate doctor, they'll say the Western blot standard test that clinicians do is a false negative about 60-70% of the time. So they'll tell you you don't have Lyme when you really do. That's why we always look to like the IGeneX test, which is a much better test. But that's kind of sad because, again, if you catch it early, it's fairly easy to treat. When it becomes chronic, it becomes kind of a nightmare to treat. And when you get a test and the doctor says, well, you don't have Lyme, you might go years trying to figure out what the problem is before you get the right test done.
Wow. Yeah, that's so scary, really,
Yeah.
Huh. What symptoms did you have that you were thinking you had Lyme to begin with?
Well, for me, it was about 4 or 5 years of slowly getting more and more pain throughout my back. Just general stiffness, soreness, pain. It started in my lower back and it moved up my back into my neck. And something wasn't right. And finally, I got to the point where I was limited enough in what I was doing to go in and just go to a functional doctor, get a general set of blood tests done just to see if we could see something going on. And I've been keto at that point for, 6, 7, 8 years. And everything looked great, but the CRP, which is a C-reactive protein, which is a marker for inflammation, came back at 50, which we have, our clients generally when they're keto, it's below 2 and usually below 1 for inflammation.
So CRP is huge.
Yeah, and so 50, I was immediately like, okay, something's really not right. And our publisher actually clued us on to the IGeneX test and said, you need to take this test. And that came back positive for Lyme.
Oh, thank God for your publisher. Oh my gosh, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. And 50, that's so alarming. Like, something's going on right there,
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, that's great that, you were able to take care of it and going carnivore is helping. So for the listeners that may have Lyme, that's a good, solution is try carnivore to help with your symptoms.
Exactly.
That's really cool. So what is next for you guys, Craig? What are you guys working on right now?
The big thing is our carnivore book that's coming out in October. And we got 2 books at once right now. We're also Maria's doing an air fryer cookbook that's coming out in December. So got a couple of big books going on. I'm really excited about the carnivore book because we're gonna kind of go into. Nobody's really kind of covered this as a topic onto itself, and there's really a lot of nuance to it, and especially when it comes to like healing. And there's people that do carnivore for Lyme, but there's also people that have bipolar issues or anxiety that keto helps but doesn't totally eliminate. But when they go carnivore, they see symptoms completely gone. And so, I'm diving into a lot of why that is and these anti-nutrients in plants. And so it's going to be a pretty comprehensive book.
Are your boys carnivore?
No, one of their favorite things is lasagna, protein noodle lasagna, which is primarily protein, but, also has tomato sauce in it.
Mm-hmm. And do you guys still make that chocolate pudding with the hard-boiled eggs?
Yeah, they love that too.
But do you eat that, or are you like really dogmatically strict on the carnivore?
I personally have much more of a savory, I don't really have a sweet tooth. And so for me, I stick with the salty, like, beef, steaks, hamburgers, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Chicken wings.
Yeah, that's like my favorite is, my mouth is watering right now.
Yeah.
I love like the red meat. So it's funny because so many people say, oh, I'm eating healthy, I gave up red meat. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like trying to explain to them why chicken isn't as healthy as red meat is just so hard to break that pattern,
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then the Instant Pot, here's a you said air fryer. Here's a question regarding the air fryer.
Yeah.
So I got one. I've only used it like once or twice, but my concern is that the inside where you cook seems to be like a lining of like a Teflon nonstick coating.
Yeah, you gotta, there are ones that are like stainless. They're a little bit tougher to clean afterwards, but they don't have that issue.
Oh, bummer. Okay, that's not the one I got.
Yeah, you got to watch some of those things. They don't think about them. Even some of the slow cookers, you got to look for the right kind of glazed ones so they don't have any bad coatings on them.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's hard to find. Like I have a really good expensive slow cooker, but I heard this podcast that scared me. The guy said, okay, you put water that's like purified clean water into a slow cooker and you just cook that water and then you test it afterwards and it's full of chemicals.
Yeah.
And I was like, shoot. And I think I have All Clad. Like I have a really good slow cooker.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's safe or not now,
Yeah, you got to kind of watch that stuff.
Yeah, well, thanks for scaring the crap out of me today, Craig.
There's just so much of that stuff in our environment that, it's just, you got to be detective not only with your food, but everything you're cooking it in and everything you put on your skin. It's just we're just in a storm of chemicals these days.
Yeah, for sure. And I've always watched out for that. Like the parabens is the big one, and it's so amazing to me that you can still find a slew of products with parabens in them.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's
wake
crazy.
up, people.
Yeah.
So I saw a quote somewhere that said something like, Estee Lauder, stand behind your pink ribbon.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
No, I haven't, but yeah, it's crazy. I think we'll look back at this. Hopefully someday we'll look back at this era of, the millions of new chemical additives in food and things we're putting on our skin and just realize, our skin is our second biggest organ in our body, or our biggest organ in our body.
Yeah.
People don't realize everything you put on your skin is absorbed into your body just like you ate it. Mm-hmm. And, that is a big problem with a lot of these makeups and chemical lotions and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. You want something that's very, very pure. So even like, do you guys have those like little Chinese reflexology foot massage places by you?
No, I haven't been to one.
Oh my gosh, they're amazing. So we go almost every weekend, my husband and I, because it's like $25 for an hour, and they spend 30 minutes on your feet on all the pressure points.
Yeah.
And you're in a room with, a bunch of different recliners and people, and you're all in your clothes, but they really work you really great. And the price, you can't beat it, But I bring my own lotion.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't
didn't
know
think
what they
about that.
use.
Or massage, if you get a massage done, same thing,
Yeah, I found liquid coconut oil.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so then you know that you're getting just pure 100% coconut oil, but it's liquid, so they don't have to worry about it, and so then it's pure. So,
Oh, yeah.
anyways, well, I look forward to those 2 new cookbooks coming out, or the 2 new books coming out, rather. And
Yeah.
Craig, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been a pleasure having you.
Well, thank you very much for having me on.
Oh gosh, that was so fun. I hope you enjoyed our little chit chat. And if you like the show, please share it with a friend. And always, if you haven't already, please head over to iTunes, give us a rating and review. And most importantly, please find us guests. So are you ready to share your keto success? We would love to chat with you. And I just enjoy so much getting to know wonderful people who have changed their life through the ketogenic diet. So don't be shy. Get in contact with me at tracy@highenergygirl.com. All right, go out and make it a great day. Thanks, everyone. This podcast contains the opinion and thoughts of its host and guests. It is intended to provide helpful and informative material on the subjects covered. All statements made on the podcast have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. If the listener requires professional assistance or advice, please contact your personal medical doctor. Both host and guest specifically disclaim any responsibility for any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the contents of these episodes. Like I said, this is my opinion and I could be wrong.